YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back. Today I'm ranking every NFL defense from 32 to 1. I'm also placing them in tiers as well. And this is for the upcoming 2021 season. I did the same exact video for offenses, so really going to enjoy this one. I might be different than everyone else. I only have one elite defense. I'm not just throwing that out there, especially for defenses, especially in an offensive era where defense can be beat, even the good ones, in any given week. So that's how I did things here. You guys can play along. You're already playing along on Twitter. I asked you guys who the best defense will be this year. Preseason picks on our Twitter. NFL updates. You guys will be involved in our Pick'ems League, Pick'ems videos this year by following our Twitter, so make sure you check it out. Link down below. Please like, subscribe. Full NFL coverage here. Cannot wait for our in-season content. Join us for all that. Here's our Twitter. There's the preseason picks. Don't want to spoil all of them, so go check it out. But there's a lot going on there. So Tier 5, average to below average. Once again, I'm blocking the Texans. I have the Texans at the bottom here. They look pretty good in their first preseason game. Show that they have pretty solid depth. They kind of signed a bunch of depth guys. Reason they're 32, defensive scheme change. Lovie Smith coming in, great defensive mind. Had, the Illini playing incredible defense, so. But I think the scheme change maybe throws him off a little bit. Whitney Merciless has been underwhelming, but he's supposed to, technically on paper, one of their better, not the best player, one of their better players, impact players, but he does not fit the new scheme. So there's problems even in there with the good players there. Never really been a Shaq Lawson type of guy, but they add him. He'll be playing defensive end. Menahu's the guy that could break out. Ross Blacklock. Zach Cunningham's a stud. It's their best defensive player. And they got some guys in the secondary. Hopefully Justin Reed gets back playing the way he did right off the bat, right out of college, because he was much better then. Bradley Roby. And there's a lot of spots where they're okay. They don't really have giant holes, but they can get a lot better. Lions at 31. Definitely heading in the right direction. I like a lot of the young guys they brought in. Onwuzurike from Washington's a stud. Ali McNeil was one of my guys. I think it's today's style nose tackle. You bring in Derek Barnes from Purdue, was one of my guys as well. If you're with us with the draft coverage, I thought the Lions had the best draft in football. I actually did. I don't know if that's going to click right away. They got young talent everywhere. Hopefully Okudah steps up. Hopefully Tracy Walker. We just talked about Justin Reed. Hopefully Tracy Walker's, the same thing, kind of going back to where he played the first year. So they could be sneaky. It's going to be a tough defense. I think tackling could be a little bit of an issue. One-on-one tackling maybe. They're growing. They'll get there. The Jags at 30. A lot rides on Josh Allen, let me tell you. Josh Allen, I have high expectations. He was a little off last year. But if he can consistently get to the quarterback like we expect him to, that can change a lot of things. If Clavon Chason can kind of hit his stride, get after the quarterback more often, that can change things. The good news is they upgraded their actual defensive front. It's still not the best defensive front, but it's a lot better than what it was, which was the worst in football, the three-man defensive line. Linebacker should be okay even without Schobert. Damian Wilson, I like him with Miles Jack. Secondary, they'll be hot and cold. They're pretty young. I like adding Griffin, but I think this team will give up big chunk plays. I got them at 30, but just like the Lions heading in the right direction. The Cowboys, I think, also heading in the right direction. I think we get a little bit better year from DeMarcus Lawrence. He's kind of been another hot and cold, inconsistent guy since he got that contract. That he was elite before getting that contract. Hopefully getting back towards that. I'm excited to see, young guys like Trevon Diggs step up. I think Jalen Smith does a better year. Micah Parsons will be used, and he'll be solid, I believe. So I'm excited about the young defense. Bengals at 28. Could be a little sneaky. I think they'll blitz a bit. Adding Mike Hilton in the slot was big. They'll blitz him, actually. Jesse Bates, one of my guys, maybe the best free safety in football. I like some of the pieces they have. Maybe Hendricks to be better than expected. Hubbard, some of these pass rushers. But again, I think they'll blitz. Maybe a guy like Jermaine Pratt steps up as well. They could be sneaky. Another young defense is heading in the right direction. Just will it click all together right away? Next group of teams, I got the Seahawks at 27. On paper, I really dislike the Seahawks defense, but it almost looks like it could be the worst one, but it'll be better than what it looks like on paper. The secondary is pretty rough in terms of coverage. Jamal Adams can cover, but he's not going to be involved in that tremendously. He'll be around the box playing his game, what he does. And that kind of helps the Seahawks. The Jamal Adams factor, his blitz ability, pass rush ability, just playmaking ability, forcing fumbles, big stops on third down. That's going to boost them up a little bit. But I do worry about the coverage of this team. Sometimes you can hide poor coverage if you got a great pass rush. They got a unique pass rush. Again, Adams on the blitz. Bobby Wagner, when they blitzed him, he looked pretty good. I want them to blitz him more. Hopefully they do so. I think they will. They can get pass rush through those unique ways, but their actual edge rush, Dunlap looked pretty solid for them, but they're a little weaker in that department. Not too much interior pressure either, losing Jaron Reed. So they got a couple star players in there, Bobby Wagner, Jamal Adams, but they're lacking in some key areas. But again, they'll have unique ways of getting after the quarterback. Raiders next, one of the worst defenses last year. I think they upgraded it, adding Yannick Ngakoue, adding Casey Hayward, but mainly changing the scheme of the defense. So hopefully they can click right away. The new Gus Bradley scheme works out. I think the corners kind of already play better by default, in that new scheme. A lot of cover two, a lot of man under last year. Those guys, it wasn't really working out for those corners. So they'll be better in more of a cover three scheme. Merrick, they add him. Solid addition. Don't expect crazy, play right off the bat. But they got better. They got better. A lot of teams getting better though, so that's why you can't boost them a lot in the rankings here. Panthers at 25, good young defense, very young. I think they're somewhat balanced. They're going to get some pass rush with Brian Burns off the edge. I'm a huge Brian Burns guy. I like Derek Brown on the inside. Jeremy Chin. How will they use him this year? They used him kind of like a rover in their cover three scheme last year. They're going to run a lot more man this year. So how does that affect a rover style player, which is featured in a cover three scheme? So now, how much more man? What are we going to get? It's your guess is as good as mine here. We're just going to have to, they could be disguising things. We might not see what their full plans are right away. So time will tell here. But it's a pretty good young defense, and it's good for playing those, the Cardinals. Cardinals run almost a college-style offense, a lot of spread. That's what the Panthers' defense is built to compete against. So that's where it's very solid, going to look better than 25. Cardinals 24. Might be one that's getting hyped up a little too much. They add J.J. Watt. They get better with J.J. Watt. They get better because they get Chandler Jones back. Big question with those guys. Can they stay healthy? But the pass rush should be good, but you are relying on those two guys quite a bit. What's next to J.J. Watt in the defensive line? Not so hot. I'm not worried about the edge rush. I like the inside linebacker duo for the future, Simmons and Collins. How much will they contribute right now? Secondary is Budda Baker. Budda Baker is carrying that secondary, so I do worry about that a little bit too. So there's a lot on the backs of Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt. Great players though, but I think it's gonna be a playmaking defense. I think it's a defense that'll probably create a good amount of turnovers. Like they'll be way better ranked than 24 in terms of the turnover margin. But they'll give up yards on the ground through the air. Again, worried about the secondary a little bit. They'll give up chunk plays. So that's where I'm at with the Cardinals there. 23 through 20. Falcons at 23. Falcons, it's a tough one to rank because they were playing some really good defensive ball last year, the second half of the year. And it was weird because they went from being known as maybe the worst defense to they're playing some good ball, maybe top 15 area. Scheme change, I do think for the better, bringing in a guy like Dean Pease. There still are some holes throughout this team. Edge rush. I was going to say opposite of Fowler. Fowler needs to pick it up as well. I like the defensive front. They're going to roll with three guys on the actual defensive line. I like what they got going there for their new scheme. Young secondary. I do worry about the safety group right away. I like the corners, though. It's a weird team. I think it's going to be kind of like last year. It's going to be like, all right, yeah, the Falcons defense still stinks, and then there's 1 week like the Falcons defense pretty good. I think it's going to be like that throughout the year. Chiefs at 22. Man, a lot depends on Frank Clark. Is there a suspension coming? Because they really need him. They need that edge rush. And they really upgraded in terms of stopping a run because I think we already saw Chris Jones, Derek Nottie out there starting out there a lot. Those are good run stoppers. Chris Jones also produces, gets production against the passer, quarterback. They had Jaron Reed, though, and we're going to see him out there with those two other guys I mentioned at the same time. It's a pretty good run-stopping defensive line. Linebacker unit could be better. Secondary, Matthew kind of carries the – again, L'Jarius Sneed played pretty well. It's just guys that are kind of, I don't really expect them to be fully consistent with their secondary play there and their coverage play, but I do like Tyrann Mathieu. Titans at 21. I almost want to put the Titans higher because they really upgrade this defense, on top of guys like Jeffrey Simmons getting better. They revamped who the starting corners are going to be, so excited about that. They had Bud Dupree. I'm a huge Bud Dupree guy. How will he work from Steelers defense to Titans defense, though? Will he create for other guys like he did with the Steelers? So there's part of me wants to get hyped to kind of slow down a little bit. Will it all change overnight? That's kind of the question, but they're definitely heading in the right direction. They just couldn't get pressure last year and it forced put the corners in a tricky situation. They were playing too far off the ball. I think that by default kind of changes heading in the right direction. Eagles at 20, love the pass rush of the Eagles. The pass rush is top tier, and usually that'll do it for me. But I still, the rest of the defense, the back half, definitely better. Adding Eric Wilson, Anthony Harris, Steven Nelson, definitely better. But how much better? They didn't stop the run like their normal selves last year. Could that still be a problem? It's not going to, they add Eric Wilson to linebacker unit. They're not all of a sudden going to be a great run-stopping linebacker unit all of a sudden, or coverage. It helps adding a guy like that, not that he's anything special, but, how much, what is it actually going to do? Secondary is definitely looking better, though, so that's a good sign. So I got them at 20, could be pretty sneaky. Next tier, good defenses. The Jets at 19. Robert Saleh, a very good defensive mind. I like their defensive line. Linebacker unit pretty solid. Safety group solid. Cornerback group might be the worst in football. Hopefully the other parts of the defense, the pass rush, Quinn Williams, Carl Lawson, could kind of hide that a little bit. So a lot on them. I think they'll have a pretty good year, though. Quinn Williams, I think, has a monster year. Packers at 18. Packers, love the secondary. Love the secondary. Maybe they can get beat on one side of the corner. As of now, Stokes has got a bright future, but if he starts, whoever it may be, King, Yaedam, they just traded for. But I love the secondary. Playmakers, beasts, just straight beasts back there with Alexander, Amos, Darnell Savage, playmaker. I like getting Devondre Campbell. That actually can help. Not really a big name, but that actually can help more than what his name says. I trust Darius Smith, huge Darius Smith guy. Hopefully Kenny Clark's healthy because I like him as well. A lot riding on Preston Smith stepping up or Rashawn Gary stepping up this year. Need more pass rush. But, they got the pass rush. They got the secondary. I just really, really worry about them stopping the run per usual. Maybe Campbell could help step up. But I consider him a good defense. At one point it was poor defense. Chargers at 17, tough one to rank because they bring in a great defensive mind, Brandon Staley. Love that. Derwin James is healthy, hopefully, for the whole year. Big fan of his game. That helps the defense. Corners, again, I like who they get out there, but I think it's going to be kind of an inconsistent hit or miss weeks for them. I mean, they can be beat at times, but then we'll see some playmaking. Asante Samuel Jr. getting his hands on the ball. I think it'll be kind of up and down, but heading in the right path. They got Joey Bosa. I think Kenneth Murray's going to be a stud in this defense. My problem with them, though, is, they got some studs. They're good in every area. I have them as a good defense. But do they have a great unit anywhere? I don't see a great unit. Again, I think they'll be a playmaking defense. I think they'll give up some yards, but I think they'll get their hands on the ball. Bosa getting after the quarterback will create plays, will create for a secondary. It's just hard. The next tier is great. It's just hard to put them in there. I think they'll have some great play this year, but it's hard to put them in there where I don't really think any unit's great. Saints at 16, I think they take a little bit of a step down, still a good defense. Last year I thought they would take a little bit of a step down. And early in the year, they actually looked worse than what and I didn't think they were going to be bad, but either they kind of took a bigger step down early last year, but then all of a sudden they went back to that normal Saints defense, which was fantastic, better than what I expected. So we'll see if they do the same thing this year, but I still think a good defense. I think Cam Jordan maybe has to carry a little bit for that defensive line. That's what I worry about a little bit. They took a hit in the interior defensive line. Demario Davis really has to carry that. If Alexander stays healthy, that helps him, but I feel like he has to carry a bit. In the secondary, they're worrying a little bit, kind of a lot about the one cornerback spot at least. But I'm not, other than that, I'm not really worried about the secondary. So we'll see. What could change this is if maybe if Onyemata wasn't suspended too, that I'd feel a little better. Suspended 6 games. But if a young guy steps up on the interior that we're not really expecting, or if Davenport finally steps up, or maybe Peyton Turner gets going right off the bat, that could change things and make them back to great defense to where they've been, in my opinion. Next group of teams, these teams are kind of bored. They could be great. They could be great. The Bills, I had higher expectations last year. They had some weeks where they really they gave up the big chunk plays, chunk yards. Teams were able to kind of evenly run and throw on them. Not like a ton. They were still a solid defense, don't get me wrong. On paper, it looks better than what it is, last year. The secondary, they got Poyer, they got Hyde, they got Tre'Davious White. All right, they shouldn't have gave up that many yards. But then you look at the pass rush, they didn't really hit the quarterback enough. We think they upgraded there. They got a lot of young players. How much are we gonna get from those guys right away? Love their linebacker unit. Linebackers weren't Edmonds was okay, but they weren't overly great in terms of coverage when they needed them to cover. It's a lot riding on the young pass rusher stepping up because, I think Hughes is a starter. I think he gets good pressure. I don't have a whole lot of expectations for Madison at his age where he's at his career. Somebody's got to step up. Ed Oliver's got to step up on the inside. So a lot riding on that. A little bit of a weak spot and one corner spot. Seems like a lot of these teams, Saints, Packers. Dolphins at 14. Dolphins are tricky too because you may have viewed the Dolphins as a great defense last year, and I would have too. Why though? Why? Turnovers, playmaking defense. They created turnovers, which was a huge reason they won as many games they did because they created those turnovers. The hardest thing for defenses to do, and I'm not doubting, I'm not saying they won't be able to repeat, but just based on every year, the past, the hardest thing to do is repeat those turnover margins, those turnover numbers there. So they got playmakers though, and that's why they can do it again. So that but my point is turnovers, why they were a great defense, they were actually struggling to stop the run. And they weren't, teams threw the ball deep downfield against them. Safety play wasn't the best. Byron Jones a little underwhelming, even though I definitely believe in him still. So teams got, they racked up yards. For them being a great defense, which they were, they actually racked up quite a bit of yards, and more of the worry was the run defense. Run defense, I think, can be a little better. Wilkins stepping up, hopefully in there every game this year, adding Benardrick McKinney. It should step up. It's not going to be this major change. Hopefully guys like Byron Jones steps up. They add Javon Holland to secondary. So I like adding Jalen Phillips. Can Ugba repeat what he did last year? It was a little bit of a surprise last year. So we'll see. It's kind of a borderline team because they were great last year, but a lot of questions still. But overall, I think it's a very good defense is how I would say. Browns at 13. They added a lot. It was another very good defense. They added a lot here in the secondary. Will that click right away? Honestly, I didn't think their offensive line was going to click that great right away last year. So maybe they can, I think the secondary be good for sure. I love what they did to it. Maybe it's going to be as good as it can be right away. Maybe there's no adjustment period. Linebacker unit gets better. You still worry about it a little bit. I do worry about the interior defensive line without Sheldon Richardson in there. I think people kind of can get going down the center of the field against them, mainly running. A lot on Myles Garrett to get after the quarterback. He will get after the quarterback. Hopefully he stays healthy. But I guess Myles Garrett combined with, and hopefully Clowney gets going too. I don't have a lot of trust in him staying healthy. But if Myles Garrett gets going, which he will, combined with that secondary, plays are to be made there. So that's a good sign for the Browns. So they can end up being a lot better. But hopefully the problems are solved. Last year they were lacking speed. They weren't very good in terms of angles, chasing down guys, giving up chunk plays, yards after catch plays. So hopefully that is fixed. It's definitely a major upgrade. How much will it change in one offseason, though, 1 year, though? Great defenses. I got the Colts at 12. Colts are another tough one because, what do I always say the most important thing is pass rush. Usually you get your pass rush from your edge rushers. The Colts are pretty damn weak at the edge rush position right now. So it is rare for me to put a team this high that I don't really believe fully in their edge rush. I do like Kwity Paye. I think Kwity Paye will actually be more productive than even right off the bat than I hope and I think than he was in college, which is pretty solid. I think he's a really good fit in there. So I do like that pickup, but they don't have Justin Houston anymore. They don't have Danico Autry anymore. Those were their two guys playing defensive end, their most snaps from their pass rushers. So you do worry about that. And that's why I can't put them any higher. But, kind of going against what I value extremely high edge rush, I still put them here in the great defenses in the top 12 because, they got studs. They got DeForest Buckner. They got Darius Leonard. They stopped the run at an extremely high level. I like their safety group. Big fan of Kenny Moore's game. He can play in the slot, play outside. I think they're probably top tier. They're probably elite in sound defense, if that makes sense. technically sound. This is a team that they have the fundamentals down. They're going to tackle. They're not going to miss a lot of tackles. They're going to gang tackle. They're going to play as a team defense. That's what I love about this team. So that's why they're in the great defenses. I do worry about the pass rush a little bit. A lot riding on Buckner because you can't have to put too much pressure on Kwity Paye. I think he'll be solid. But a lot riding on Buckner getting interior pressure there. So, and you look at last year, there was actually a little bit, first 4 or 5 games, I think the Colts had the title. They were the number 1 defense in football. That's what it felt like. And then it kind of dropped off. They still viewed them as a good defense, but where they were playing then and later in the year, especially in terms of pass defense, major difference. I think they ran an insane amount of cover 2, which the teams that master it, I'm not a big cover 2 guy, but the teams that master it really throws off quarterbacks. If you're able to trap, run kind of trap coverages with it, you force them to hit that hole shot, which is not easy. But teams figure it out. Okay, they're running cover 2. Good quarterbacks were able to beat that, corner playing to flat, put it over the top, put it in the hole shot. So they were giving up a good amount of yards through the air there. So I just love how I love the gang tackling, the team defense. So that's why they're up here. Bears at 11. I worry about the Bears pass defense. It's definitely taken a step down already. I think it's going to take another step down. If you guarantee me Eddie Jackson just sticking at the free safety position, then I'd feel a lot better. But I don't know what they've been doing with him. They've been mixing it up a little bit. A lot of split safety. Eddie Jackson really isn't a split safety. He's definitely not a strong safety. To me, he's a free safety. If he was playing with the team that uses the free safeties the way they do, the Bengals, the Broncos, he'd be known as good as Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, because he's a playmaking free safety. So that would help their coverage if they used him correctly, but I don't really trust him fully. But a big reason, Kyle Fuller was just getting going. This is a guy that, like corners, take a while for them to take off. People start to think they're bust, but it's just early career corners. It's not the case. Then he takes off. I think he's been getting more consistent. Very good tackler, very good in coverage. So they move on from him. A lot of responsibilities for Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson had a for a rookie, for guys that aren't supposed to play that good, the cornerback position right away. Phenomenal year. But now he's going to be a way bigger responsibilities here. So it could be he's not going to play bad, but it could be a lot. It's going to be a lot tougher. It's not going to be simple for him. So I do worry about them in the air. They got these players that could be very solid. And then you look at, I think they have pass rush. Maybe Mac was a little underwhelming last year. Quinn was extremely underwhelming. So they got to get going a little more. I think they'll stop the run at a solid level. It just feels like they're still a great defense, but kind of taking a step down. Giants, I love the coaching for this defense. They game plan correctly. They perfectly match up with each team they play. I've been basing that off last year, so we'll see if that continues, actually. I like the actual 3-man front, mainly with Leonard Williams, an absolute stud. Dexter Lawrence is going to be a stud. So I like these guys a lot. Martinez can tackle. Secondary is very solid. It's another team. They kind of gave up some chunk plays here and there. They kind of gave up some yards, but they also had some big-time stock, big-time plays. You might be able to air it deep on them if there was a way to beat their very solid secondary. I do worry about the lack of edge rush. Hopefully a guy like Azeez Ojulari is ready to go right away because they need him in there. But technically sound defense, very good tackling, could stop the run. They're not going to get, torched anywhere, any unit, so I got them inside the top 10. Vikings take a big step up, completely change their defense between opt-outs coming back for additions from last year, Michael Pierce being that guy, both those categories, injured guys coming back. And this year's offseason additions. I mean, it's totally different defense. Harrison Smith's a returning full-time starter from last year. Other than that, Kendricks missed the last 6 games, so we could throw Kendricks in there. So Harrison Smith, Eric Kendrick, kind of the returning guys. Other than that, it's a totally different defense. I think they're built to stop the run. I mean, you basically got 2 nose tackles starting in there. You had Sheldon Richardson for passing downs as well. You have Daniil Hunter in there, who's a phenomenal pass rusher. And stops running at a high level. I guess what's going on? Where's the pass rush other than Daniil Hunter? I guess that's the question for the Vikings. Does Daniil Hunter kind of have to carry the pass rush a bit? We'll see. Mike Zimmer is a very, very good in terms of his blitz calls in the right moments. So we'll see. But I think they squeeze inside the top 10 there. Next group of teams, they got the Patriots at 8. Another team like the Vikings actually that missed a ton of guys last year, opt-outs mainly, and now you add their additions who they added throughout the free agency. Matthew Judon is one that stands out. But they kind of added all over the place as well, drafting Barmore. They're deep. They're real deep, as well. So see if they get Gilmore back out there playing, but I think they're pretty balanced across the board. Look at the, stopping the run, getting after the quarterback, coverage. I think they're, Belichick's a defensive genius as well. So I think they're kind of getting back in that range. 49ers-7, another team, missing a lot of guys injured, and I think they can kind of get back in the mix here. Secondary solid, that's a spot though. If there is no pressure on the quarterback, which we expect there to be, but not every play, I do think you could throw on them a bit. But they're going to stop the run. They're going to get after the quarterback. They got linebacker studs, Fred Warner that can cover, can stop the run evenly. We'll see if they take a hit without their defensive coach there. So I'm kind of getting hyped up on this defensive line again. It's just about staying healthy. Look at Nick Bosa, D Ford, got to stay healthy. Ravens at 6, best cornerback duo in football. One of the better, probably the best blitzing team in football. Watch out for Patrick Queen coming on those blitz. Don Martindale's the blitz god, really, of defenses. So that's what they'll do. They'll kind of do their same thing there. Adding Justin Houston was pretty big, so I was getting a little worried about their actual edge rushers. Defensive line, it's definitely up there in age, but it's very, very solid. So they'll stop the run. Their corners will be able to cover. They'll get pressure, blitz. Safety play needs to step up. How much pressure will they get off the edge? So they're kind of, can I call them borderline elite? They are relying on the blitz. When they go play a team like the Chiefs, a team, I always bring up that example. Mahomes, for some reason, gets better when you blitz him, dominates him. There's a few teams, the Bills are kind of like that as well. The Ravens just changed they have to change what they know. They changed their defense. So I hope they kind of get going in a variety of ways now to get over that hump, because that's what's stopping them a little bit. So that's kind of why I can't really call them an elite defense or borderline elite, but they're right there. Tier 2, borderline elite defenses. Yes, I only have one elite defense. It's an offensive era. Every defense can be beat. They're not all going to be elite every week. Number 5, I got the Buccaneers. I like their pass rush. They had Joe Tryon onto that mix on top of their great pass rush. They stopped the run at an incredibly high level. Linebacker duo is the best in football. They're absolutely studs. Devin White's getting better. Secondary's young and improving. I do think where you can kind of beat them is a lot of small ball, underneath ball. So that is what they can fix to kind of get to that elite category. The Broncos at 4. Health is definitely a concern, when it comes to Von Miller, Bradley Chubb. The secondary was kind of depleted. The corners were kind of depleted last year. Linebacker play can be better. A.J. Johnson was solid. I thought he was better 2 years ago. But it's really relying on a guy like Von Miller. Bradley Chubb's missed some time too, but on those guys staying healthy. I like their defensive front in their 3-4, their 3-man front, but it's been better in the past. So another reason why those guys got to stay healthy. Secondary looks great, though. Looks very good. They're at 4. Rams at 3. They lost quite a few guys. So, last year I thought they were the best defense in football. So I do think they take a small step down, and they lose Staley, their defensive coordinator, as well. I think they take a small step down, but Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey having those stars, maybe the best players at their position, maybe the best defensive players in all of football right there, maybe 1 and 2. So, that's huge. They got other players, Leonard Floyd, hopefully a guy like Terrell Lewis can stay healthy, step up. Taylor Rapp, excited about him. Darius Williams, can they step up? So, it's a borderline elite defense. The Packers kind of exposed them, north and south, straight up the middle a little bit. They found ways to almost take out Aaron Donald out of the game, easier said than done, and then just dominate, the linebackers inside, and just force one-on-one tackling. And, guys like, Aaron Jones and company, made that a problem. So I think that is how you beat them probably, that defense, but it's right there, borderline elite. Steelers, that front 7 is ridiculous, insane. The front 7 itself is elite for sure. Pass rush galore there. I'm excited to add Melvin Ingram on top of who they already have in there, and Highsmith, and of course TJ Watt. We'll see if Highsmith steps up for them like we're expecting. Where I can't fully put them in elite is because they did look like they almost, not a totally different defense, but they did take a pretty big step down when Bud Dupree came out of there actually. And they missed him, but they have Highsmith stepping up, and they have Melvin Ingram, so it kind of puts a Band-Aid over that a bit. I do think they're better at Bud Dupree, but mainly why, they're a hair off of elite. I'm not in love with the secondary, specifically the corners. It helps they have Minkah Fitzpatrick back there at the free safety position because he's an absolute stud, obviously. Edmonds needs to step up. Hayden's, he's solid. He's declining a little bit, but I do worry about cornerback play. We get by with, obviously you're doing more than getting by with Minkah Fitzpatrick and with Joe Hayden, I suppose. But yeah, for them to be an elite defense, I think a little bit better in that secondary. And then my number one team, and I'm calling them elite this year, and I don't really throw that out for defenses in today's game really at all. I'm a little hesitant to do that. I'm going to go with Washington. Here. I love the defensive front. The pass rush is ridiculous. Chase Young's going to be an absolute monster this year. Montez Sweat, I was extremely high on him out of Mississippi State, and he's just getting going. The interior is ridiculous. Deron Payne's a great nose tackle. Young still getting better. Jonathan Allen and Matt Ioannidis. They're loaded there. Linebacker unit was like a spot where, they were solid last year. They can get a little better. They go out and get Jamin Davis. Is his style of play is kind of that piece they needed in there. Flashy guy, rangy. I actually want, get creative with him a little bit, maybe on the blitz. They're not a high blitzing team, but good in coverage. They'll use him quite a bit there. They also get better at the cornerback position. Well, kind of going back to linebackers, so they get Landon Collins back, which he's a safety, but he kind of played that rover role a bit, kind of like a box safety, which is technically a linebacker, so he kind of helps that category as well. But you get him back. That's fantastic. You had William Jackson at the cornerback position. And Cameron Curl coming back. He was fantastic in his rookie year. It's kind of a surprise. And you had Bobby McCain back there too. So they got flexibility, versatility. They're deep. They got pass rush. They got coverage. They got great defensive mind around Rivera. They're young, getting better. The younger guys, athletic guys, seem to be taking over the NFL on top of all those things. So this feels like an elite defense to me. Their offense got better, which actually plays a factor because, if an elite defense is constantly on the field, after the team's offense is going 3 and out, they're going to look worse than they are. It's going to be a harder job for them. So I think that helps as well. Their offense should be better. So I got Washington up there at the top. You guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments. We're playing along on Twitter already with comments. I got preseason picks on the Twitter. I got NFL updates on there as well. To get involved with our pick'ems this year, our league with prizes, make sure you follow that Twitter. Link down below at GoatHouse NFL. Also, like, subscribe, full NFL coverage, videos like these on the channel, pick'em, score predictions, power rankings, and a lot more in season. Cannot wait, but please join us for that. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.